I'm ready.
64-year-old Dean Summers is one of Australia's most accomplished open water swimmers. With the English Channel, Strait of Gibraltar, Cook Strait and Manhattan Island among his list of achievements. But in March this year, he took on his biggest challenge yet. Dean entered the water at Nobby's Beach in Newcastle, trying to become the first man to swim unassisted from Newcastle to Sydney, a total of 95 kilometres. Swimming through the night, Dean battled blue bottle stings and extreme fatigue before hitting the sand at Palm Beach on Sydney's northern beaches. After 31 hours, Dean had set a new Australian long-distance swim record, while also raising funds to support the mental health of seafarers and maritime workers. And us now, welcome.
Thank you.
So good to see you. That looked like a man emerging from the water who had been through a lot.
Nobody looks their best after 31 hours.
I put it to you, sir, that this is absolute madness that you're doing. How incredible that you do that. I mentioned the blue bottles. Was that the big thing? I mean, the pain you're going through?
The blue bottles were the worst thing. And
Yeah.
I thought I might get stung, but every 20 minutes for 31 hours, it's like Guantanamo Bay stuff. And it was fatiguing, it was painful. At night, I couldn't see where they were to peel them off. So, yeah, I didn't plan on getting stung that much.
No, of course. No. Not many people do. I think one of the ways you could deal with it was swearing, is that right?
Well, I think that's the best way. And sort of in medical terms, if you just stop for a second, swear as loudly as you can, as many expletives as you can think for the little blue bastards, and it helps a bit.
Dean, a lot of people talk about the English Channel, but really this is the holy grail of swimming. Two legends of Australian open water swimming have attempted this before and, have failed. Des Renford and Susie Moroney. When you finished and you know that you've done that, how did it make you feel?
Well, I'm very proud. Those are two of the best showmen and best swimmers the country's ever known, and if I had failed, I still would have been in very good company. So that was a bit of a cushion. But I felt really proud. I had better opportunities than they did to navigation, to shark shields. They didn't have shark shields, and a whole lot of other weather predictions. So I had the edge on them, but still, it was a long swim, and neither of them had a chance to finish it.
So 95 Ks,
yes.
And then marathon runners, run half and near to train. Tell us how many kilometres leading in to get to 95?
Well, I reckon I've been training non-stop for 10 years with all those other channels. But the last year has been pretty intense, and up to 2,000 kilometres last year.
Robbie doesn't ride his bike that far.
Kilometres.
I've got a very good coach. He's pretty tough. Lad from Lad Swim in Sydney. He's got 80 people across the English Channel. And he's just, he's just a tough guy, but he's got a way of exacting the best out of all of his swimmers. So it's a lot down to him and training me well.
How do you relax, Dean? How do you celebrate? Do you have a beer, or what do you do at the end? Something like that.
There's a big bottle of champagne at the end of that film there, but no, I just got this when I got home a few hours later. I was still taking blue bottle stings off my legs and peeling them off me. But I recovered well down to the training. I still had plenty left in the tank. The reason we turned into Palm Beach was there was a southerly front coming up a little earlier than we'd planned it to come up, and so I was still 16 kilometres out to sea.
Yeah.
The crew made the decision to turn me in to get me closer to the coast before the front came through, and by the time I got closer to Palm Beach, which was closed out because the surf was too big, then they decided to land me there. I'm very happy they did.
Dean, just the part reading about it, tell us about the night when you talked about the stars and every time you swam the colours as the water broke. But what was that? Explain to us that feeling.
Well, I live on Coogee, and for the last 2 years I've been looking out over the ocean thinking, soon I'm going to be out there in the middle of nowhere, dark, lonely, cold. And I was kind of dreading it. I wasn't worried, but it was just...
But it turned out the other way around.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm out there, the sun goes down, the sun sets, and then completely all the light goes away. I'm 16 kilometres away from the coast, so there's no light coming from Sydney. The pilot boat's a little way over, and all of a sudden the Southern Cross lights come up, bright enough to read from, I would say.
Wow.
And it was beautiful. I thought, this is not going to be too bad. Then I got stung by blue bottles. And so as I put my hand in the water, I could see what we call bioluminescence, and it's this little organism that generates its own light from movement. And so out of the end of your fingers come these little stars, these little bursts of light in complete black around you. I couldn't see an horizon. All I could see were these stars. When the bioluminescence come out, it was like I was just travelling through the universe, through space. It was beautiful. Yeah. Bang, I got hit by a blue bottle.
Are you sure that was real, or were you just completely off chops because you were so
It could have been the blue bottle.
Dean, talk to me about, you had your daughter with you at times. How special was that?
Well, it's always special. My daughter and my son and my wife have been with me on all these swims. But to have Michelle with me on that after all the things that she's been through and the family's been through over the last few years was very special. She was one of 4 kayakers that were rotating through on 3-hour shifts. And I remember one part of the night, I've seen it on video, she had to be launched from a very heavily rocking boat. She had to be launched backwards on the kayak, like a commando, straight out of the back of the thing. And she was tough as nails. And she just went over and started paddling next to me. No nonsense, doesn't give me any information, just tells me to keep on swimming. So I'm very grateful. It was very, very special. Thanks, Candice.
Do you talk about those beautiful things you go through? Do you get to any dark places in your head, though, on that sort of journey?
I think if you do, you know, maybe swimming's not for you because you can't battle those things. Sometimes if you feel yourself going into that, there's ways and methods you develop yourself to get out of that. You've got to be in a good place all the time.
What about New York? Now, you circumnavigated Manhattan Island.
Yes.
So
yeah.
the Hudson, the East River.
Yeah, it's up the East River.
Right.
Up
Pushing
to Harlem.
dead bodies aside. From
Not far from it. It's a pretty grubby river. And then up the Harlem, which wasn't any cleaner, with kids throwing rocks off the bridges up there. And then you get spat out into the Hudson and come down at a great rate of knots. It's bigger than a novelty swim, but it's something really special. You got to swim under 20 bridges. It's quite beautiful. It's quite, you know, it's fascinating. The history of New York unfolds around you. But I think you're getting to the Harlem Whitefish, which is something that everybody knows about in New York, but people try not to talk about it too much. But a Harlem Whitefish is a used condom that's just floating around. And I don't know what they get up to in New York, but Jesus Christ, there's a lot of them.
And I was going to ask you about, you know,
I thought it was
what do
a
you
real
do
fish.
if you need to do a wee or poo?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's not quite that level, but you just do it, and it's no big deal. But it's one of the wonders of swimming. The great thing is having a pee when you're swimming. It takes some concentration, but once you've got it,
It's the best.
Well, I tell you what, I'm never swimming behind Dean. I'm only going to go parallel.
But Dean, you said you've been training for 10 years, but it always starts
Amazing.
somewhere. When you're a kid, who was your swimming partner? Like, where did it start?
Well, I started swimming. My dad thought he was a coach and he was wrong. But he kept us going to the pool in Fremantle. So we swam in Fremantle in cold water with no goggles in chlorine water. But one of my swim buddies was, in the squad, was Roxanne Andrews, who's Sam Kerr's mum. And I knew Roger, of course, from school. So it's a small world.
Well, it's a small world, and you've conquered several parts of it in the water. Amazing effort. I know how you're encouraging people to use our coastline for these sorts of things. Absolutely wonderful. We could talk to you for another half an hour.
Sure, let's go.
Let's go. I love it.
Can I just say that if those bankers are looking to sink some money into some ideas
Coach Rugby League.
Thank you so much. An absolute thrill to have you. Coming up, our champ of the week. Stick around.
Thanks, guys.